All right.
Okay. Here we are. So I'd like to look at the last phrase. Well, we were in the middle. I don't know if people want to continue talking about the issues of prayer and trying to find a way to engage in prayer that feels right, that feels meaningful. We had a bunch of comments and insights last time, so I don't want to cut it off if people still have things that are on their minds, in their hearts. Yeah, Bill.
My vote probably shouldn't count since I wasn't here, unfortunately, last week, although this is the mission that I wanted to study more than anything else. So I'd be quite happy to hear what people have to say about it. I don't really have any insights. I've just hunger for what other people have to say. But if people want to move on, that's okay too. As I said, my vote should not count as a full vote since I wasn't here last week.
All right, so you get 3/5 of a vote.
That sounds
Okay.
good. That sounds good.
All right. Anybody else have an opinion? Well, if nobody wants, okay, Josie.
I'm sorry, wait, me?
Josie says,
Josie.
raised her hand. She raised her hand. I don't know. Did you raise your hand, Nick?
Yeah.
You did? I didn't. I apologize.
I think for me, it raises the same old question of, since I don't know the Hebrew, am I really participating on a deeper level than I might yearn for? I'm not sure. Many times I find the English very meaningful and gives me room for thought. And other times I feel like I'm a little left out because I don't understand the Hebrew. I don't know if anybody else struggles with
that. So Nick and then Jen.
Well, we had a discussion last time about different sidurs, and who was it? Someone mentioned the one. Merrill mentioned the one with the photographs, and I looked at it. It was very powerful. It was really start a new day, and to see this picture of a startling, sunrise. It really makes a difference. And I got a new siddur and used it this past Shabbat. And there was some attempt in this siddur to correlate the words, the English words with the Hebrew words, so that you could actually track a sentence. And that was very exciting. And even in that prayer book, there were sections that were omitted from that. They just had English and not Hebrew, or I mean English and Hebrew, but no transliteration or no clear-cut distinction or synchronization of the words. At any rate, it was really it was interesting that whole discussion about how a siddur is presented and what it makes possible in prayer was very interesting, and I think people should explore different siddurs. I think that they suggest new possibilities of prayer.
Okay, good. Jen.
I would just like to know, what does our tradition have to say about extemporaneous prayer? Because we have, a large liturgy, and that can be helpful in Hebrew or in English. But what do we say? What does our tradition think? Does it exist beyond the silent Amida? Is it even supposed to exist in the silent Amida? Like, what do we say about it?
Okay, that's so. Let me just respond to that question as quickly as I can, and then we'll come back to.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a very big question. I'm sorry about that.
Or it's actually easy, maybe a little bit easier to answer. The answer is extemporaneous prayer, personal prayer, and it doesn't have to be extemporaneous. It can be a practice. Extemporaneous.
Yeah, but I mean, what's not a practice? Like what is outside of our liturgy and not what's not planned?
You can. So personal prayer, extemporaneous prayer is absolutely welcome and valued. The idea of a codified prayer was two things. First of all, to get people out of just themselves, to be part of a bigger whole. So even if you're praying on your own, by praying the prayers that are in a prayer book that are codified as prayers, you know them by heart, whatever, you are linking yourself up with the general community, both horizontally and vertically, both through generations and also at any particular moment in time and beyond the place that you're in. So that's one thing, to take you out of yourself. You're absolutely encouraged, you're entitled, and you're encouraged to pray the prayers that come from your heart. I mean, so many of the Psalms are what they are. They're personal prayers where the psalmist says, my heart is yearning for you. You know, I love you. I'm looking for you. I can't find you. It's so good to be here. It's so frustrating not to find you. I mean, all of those different kinds of things help me with this. It's so amazing. I look around at the mountains. They're so nice. You know, all of the different range of prayers. They're all personal prayers. So personal prayers have been sanctified, and every person is welcome and absolutely encouraged to reach out to God authentically, you know, honestly. So the first thing, though, is that taking yourself out of yourself is also important. Being part of the community is important, and that's what the general prayers do. And the general prayers give us themes that we wouldn't necessarily choose in our own personal prayer. Because usually our personal prayers are very narrowly focused on our personal needs and our personal feelings. So the whole gamut of themes that are in the official prayers would not necessarily come about if we ourselves just made up our own prayers. But a lot of people feel that whole gamut is great, but where am I in that gamut? And the answer is yes. The only person who can be you in that gamut is you. So every prayer in the Amida, for instance, is meant to be, like I said last time, a box. Here's your framework. What do you want to bring into that? That's up to you. We're not going to prescribe to you. It's not up to us, and it's not legitimate for anybody outside of you to tell you what to do for your own personal prayer. So I think it's a respectful, sensitive, and empowering approach, although a lot of people find it not empowering because they don't feel, and that's what we're going to get to a little bit in the final statement of this teaching. But a lot of people don't feel that they're able to do it. But I think that the tradition says, of course you're able to. If you have a heart, which means if you're alive, you have a heart, it's beating, aren't you? So if you have a heart, you can pray. You just have to try. And we say, you know, God, you are the one who hears prayer. God is going to listen if you pray. The most obvious example in the Amida is the prayer for healing. In the prayer for healing, we have in many Sidurim a note. And here, if you want to insert the name of somebody that you want to pray for, you know, put this in here too. So that just brings up another problem, which is that the more different contributions accumulate, the more they become codified. So, for instance, the last paragraph of the Amida, my God, and note that it says that in the personal singular, my God. When you look at the rest of the Amida, it's our God, our source of strength, you know, and so on. This says, my God, right? Guard my tongue from evil, and so on and so forth. That was originally a personal prayer by one of the sages that then somehow people got to know about it. And they said, oh, I like that personal prayer that person is saying. I'm going to use it also, right? So it ends up being a kind of an ironic situation where things that were meant to be supplementary become part of the basis the basic package. That brings us back to the other question, which is a lot of people don't feel that they have the ability to formulate their prayers, to say their prayers, for various reasons, whether it's about that they don't feel literate enough. I don't know Hebrew, how am I going to pray? Or I really don't, I can't organize my own thoughts, or I'm not worthy. That's, like I say, that's going to be the last thing that we're going to look at in this Mishnah. People are very they're not used to praying, and I don't think it's only a modern phenomenon, although it is a very much of a modern phenomenon. It's been enhanced by modern times, and especially in the Jewish community. We became so secular. We are at the avant-garde of secularization. That's just historically the way it is, for all kinds of reasons. So the spontaneous, extemporaneous, gift of prayer has been less and less cultivated. If you go into many Christian communities, people can do an extemporaneous prayer, before the hat drops, at the drop of a hat, before the hat hits the floor, they're already, comfortable with saying, whatever is in the moment, whatever, whatever comes out of their hearts. When I participate in interfaith activities or clergy activities, there's a lot of people sharing prayers, like, okay, can we close with prayer? Right? We just had a meeting, and now we want somebody to close us out in prayer. So they didn't write this prayer ahead of time. They didn't look up, what does the Lutheran and Book of Prayer say about, closing out the interfaith, clergy council of Montclair, on November 5th. Somebody opens up and does it. And it's very inspiring, actually, and humbling to listen to that and to learn from it. And I feel that I have. But I want to go back to one more thing before we get to relate to the other comments and whatever other comments there are. And that is, extemporaneous is not the same thing as personal. You can create a personal practice of prayer. And that was very much encouraged, for instance, by the Hasidim. The Hasidim said, good, pray whatever the Siddur says, pray Shachrit, Mincha, Mariv, all the morning, afternoon, and evening prayers. All that is great. Besides that, what prayer practice do you have? Do you have a special room to go into, a special space where you can go into that space? And the word that was used is hitbodedut. Isolate yourself, quarantine yourself, and just be alone with God. And then talk to God in any language that's comfortable for you. And be someplace where you're not going to be embarrassed to cry. You're not going to be embarrassed to scream. You're not going to be embarrassed to laugh. Right? Be someplace that's totally private between you and God, and create that as a regular practice. That's yours. So that's why I wanted to differentiate between extemporaneous and personal. That can be a very regularized kind of thing, and that's where the traditional philosophy is very insistent. We don't believe that all the good stuff happens only spontaneously. If you're not inspired, don't do it. No, do this on a regular basis, and then you'll find inspiration, and then you'll find connection. If people were only together with each other when they really feel totally in love with each other, so we would all be living in isolation. You need a structure, you need a framework, you need regularity to make the peak moments possible. right? And to make the peak moments perceptible. So every artist knows that. You don't go into your studio only when you're inspired. You go into the studio, you futz around with stuff, you keep on working on things, and sometimes when you're blessed, something comes out. So that's the same thing with prayer, and that's the other gift that the standard prayer gives you, is that it doesn't put you on the spot every time to invent the words that you need to invent to pray, right? And then you don't have to judge yourself. Boy, that was a pretty uninspiring prayer I just said. Boy, God must be really bored with me. I've just said the same thing that I said yesterday and the day before. This way you don't have to blame yourself, because that's what you have to do. So it's when we had a few years back, we did a series of workshops on prayer. And one of the things that I shared with everybody at that time is, it's a teaching that Reb Zalman, made very explicit. That is, again, going back to relationships. Relationships wither if there isn't a regular communication of love between the two people in the relationship that doesn't depend on being excited or inspired, right? You don't complain when somebody tells you I love you and they told you yesterday. You don't complain, why are you repeating yourself? Why did you have to say that again? You said it yesterday. But that's what prayer is. Prayer is telling God I love you. And you gotta tell the one that you love, I love you, regularly. And guess what? The love is sustained. The love exists in a healthy way because it's being watered by that continuous statement of I love you. And when you don't say it, it dries up. It dries up, because then, you just wonder what's there, what's not there, when, what's being felt and what's being not felt. So those are some of the things that I would just share about the difference and the complementary dynamic between the codified prayer and personal prayer. All right. So unfortunately, with all of that talking, I can't remember everything that was said before. But Nick's suggestion is, learn from, like I said, I learned from my non-Jewish clergy colleagues, and I appreciate it. Every Siddur is a product of great thought and struggling with what makes sense, how to do this. I'm gonna hurry up. I'll be right back. So Merle's photographic Siddur, we've looked at before, right? We looked at it last time, right? Maybe not. Anyway, the irony about that Siddur, of course, is that photographs of the outside world are, being used instead of us just looking at the outside world. What we take for granted. We're so used to looking at the rest of the world that we don't get knocked out by what we see. But then when it's a photograph, of a landscape, of a candle, or something like that, then all of a sudden it gets framed and we can appreciate it more. There's a rule, a law, right? A halacha, that shuls must have windows.
Hmm.
That you're not supposed to daven in like some windowless basement or some space like, you're supposed to have some view of the world that we're in. So the photographs, I mean, it's undeniable. The photographs have a certain power. It just should shake us up a little bit about saying, hey, maybe I should just really look at the world as if I'm a camera, and appreciate what I see. What I want to show you here is a different siddur. This is a siddur that was created in Canada by Rabbi Ron Egan of blessed memory, who was a longtime rabbi of a big Reconstructionist shul in Canada. And believe me, there aren't too many of them. So this is a layout on the page of the siddur. So for instance, at the top of this page here is Kadosh, 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 right? Hashem Tzvakot Melech, holy, holy, holy. And guess what? Right next to that phrase is the English, holy, holy, holy. And then the next line, and then the English. So this is printed in so that it's not like, and on the right side is the Hebrew, and on the left side, and the left page, it's the English. This is printed very specifically with the Hebrew on the left side, the left half of one page, because that's the way Hebrew goes from right to left. And the English is printed on the left side of that same page because it goes from left to right. And this way they emerge from each other, right? I think this is a great idea. You know, we have that red siddur that we use Friday nights, which is also a very thoughtful production. And that's the one thing that they didn't figure out, right? They put the transliteration next to the Hebrew, but they don't put it, you know, in that kind of like that. They're off on the sides. I think that this is a great graphic idea for how to connect people to the words, to go back and forth when you don't quite know the Hebrew. And you, well, what does that phrase mean? Oh, here it is. Here it is. So, you know, the one thing that's missing here, of course, is the transliteration. The Orthodox community is great at this. The Orthodox community has so many people that join the community that don't know Hebrew. They didn't have a yeshiva education. They didn't have good background. So there are all these siddurim that are word for word, for instance. The Hebrew is on one line and immediately under it is the word for word. So it ends up mangling the English, something fierce, but it gives you a running translation of the words. And then it also gives you sometimes transliteration. There are different editions that try to answer these needs. We're slowly figuring a little bit of this out. So as Nick mentioned, there's a little more transliteration in the Lev Shalem, right?
Yeah.
Lev Shalem Siddur. The one that we use on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, a lot of people really, you know, were so happy when we switched over to that. That has more transliteration than we ever used to have, but it's not fully transliterated, right? We had to create those booklets. Jen, you were involved in that, right? So
No, I was just a beneficiary of it.
okay, that's an involvement too. So sorry, but so you know, people we put those booklets together. So the Lev Shalem now has a Shabbat edition, Shabbat and Yom Tov. That's what Nick was talking about. And there's a lot more transliteration, but it's not fully transliterated, right? The Red Siddur makes a point of saying every single word, every single line will be transliterated, right? And then the English is off on the side. These are efforts that people have tried to make to get us closer to those kinds of prayers. When we're out of time, I did a lot of talking. Josie, I didn't really quite come back to your sense of struggle, right? What am I missing? The answer is that every day is a new day. And the prayer that you recite today is the prayer for today. And tomorrow you'll recite the prayer or a prayer and it'll be different. I can testify from my own personal experience, the same words, I have a fairly decent understanding of traditional Hebrew. The same words have struck me out of the blue. Oh, that's what I'm saying. You know, after I was saying it, you know, for years and years in a certain kind of way. And then all of a sudden I saw it with a little bit of a different kind of angle, a different kind of, you know, inflection, tone of voice. Prayer is a living thing. So it's not what, you know, it's not that, what am I missing here? It's what do I have right now? And tomorrow I'll have something else. So I would just encourage that. I'm gonna use, if I can do this. I'm going to take advantage of having only a couple of minutes left. And I want to read to you a story. The problem is now I have to find it.
While you're looking, can I say something?
You can say something.
Yeah. Well, you know, in acting, we have something called the illusion of the first time. You know, you say something over and over and over again. And if you say it like you say it over and over and over again, it becomes meaningless. But if you attempt to say it as if you've never said it before, then it has that possibility of striking you as something completely different than what you've been reading over and over again.
Yeah, there's a colleague of mine, I don't remember anymore what their name is. It's been a while since I've seen it, but they have like a signature of underneath their email, you know, under their name, and it's a say, pray like you mean it, right? Which has this you know ambiguous kind of idea. Does it you know, pray and mean it, or pray like you mean it? You know, so make believe that you mean it, and then maybe you'll mean it, right? So it's that kind of, I think it's a little bit connected to what Nick is saying about, you have to get yourself into, oh, here, I found it. Let me see if, no, it doesn't have the whole thing. All right, I'm going to read to you, we have no time left. I'm going to read you a piece of a prayer, and if people can remind me next time, I'll tell you the rest of the story. This is recorded in a medieval book, Sefer Hasidim. Sefer Hasidim means the book of the pious. It's not the Hasidim that we're familiar with. This is Hasidim from the 12th century in Germany. The German pietists is what they're called. And the story is told in this book that there was once an illiterate shepherd. And this illiterate shepherd, all day long, that's what he did. He just went out and took care of his flocks. But he had a yearning to pray. So he would say the following prayer every day, not extemporaneously, but every day, right? He would say, Lord of the universe, it is apparent and known to you that if you had cattle and gave them to me to tend, although I take wages for tending cattle from everybody else, from you, I would take nothing because I love you. That was his prayer, right? So it was completely rooted in his reality. This is who I am. This is my life. And I want to tell you how I would have this special connection with you, this special, what I could do for you. I wouldn't do it for anybody else because I love you, God. So that was the prayer that this person would say every day. We'll continue next time. Okay? Be well.
Be well. Thank you.
Yashikar.